think most teachers are very aware that their students see them as an example. Their students look at the way they dress and they copy the way they dress and the way they fix their hair and just copy so many mannerisms of the teacher. And I think that a teacher is very aware of this and very responsive to the example that they set for their students.
So a dress code really isn't needed, you believe?
Well, in most cases, no. There might be a few isolated cases where the dress of the teacher would be disruptive to the classroom activities, but I don't know of any particular case where this is true.
Well, it's a pretty bad thing. I guess most of us get scared about it most of the time, but we try to go ahead and not think about it at all.
Have you ever had a bad experience while driving a bus?
No, I haven't. No, sir.
Are you married?
Yes, I am.
What does your wife think about this?
Well, she's not thinking too much about it right now. She tries not to think about it. She just lets me go and do what I want to do. I love to drive a bus. I like to drive, period.
Did you know the driver who got shot?
Yes, I did. Not real personally, but I did know him by sight.
The rules of appellate procedure, and we would follow them, and we would meet all of the time limits under those rules.
I generally disagree with what Mr. Boyd says. In all frankness, I think it was a close question. I think the judge could have ruled in favor of the state of Texas or ruled in favor of Watson, and apparently he chose to rule in favor of Watson. I never quarrel with my court's decisions. I have my personal opinions, but he's the judge and I'm bound by his orders.
There was two masked men that came in and told everyone to stand still, that this was a robbery, and one of them proceeded down to the other end of the bank, and he had a satchel, and he started throwing money in the satchel. The other man was waving a gun around and was telling everybody just to stand still.
Did they all have guns?
Yes, sir.
Did they threaten anyone?
I thought they were going to threaten me. He stuck it at my face and told me to, I quote, "Hurry up, baby, throw the money up here and I'm not fooling around." So it scared me.
Department of Corrections in Texas, the repeaters have been as low as 20%, while the nationwide average is 60%. These people who, between the times that they enter prison, if you're just thinking of the average person, they prey upon society and do considerable damage. And I propose that the Commissioners' Courts of Dallas and Tarrant counties, as well as the legislative delegations of the two counties, get together prior to the next legislative session and plan for something very real in this field and make it possible for us to make the regional jail concept into a reality.
Was passed, the young people and the police considered it effective immediately. In fact, Chief Walls testified he considered it effective until 4 o'clock when he was told it was would not be effective. They did not know the penalties. They did not know when it was going into effect. In fact, they were given no information at all about the ordinance, and I was unable to find out anything about the ordinance, and we feared violence if the police tried to enforce it without an adequate explanation to the young people.
In other words, you achieved what you wanted at the hearing, and that being information.
Information, and we prevented a confrontation between the police and the young people on Monday night.
Well, we really have a lot of options. The thing you've got to watch, though, is that you make too many options too long. You know, it takes a while to gel something, and you have to make decisions fairly quick and give them a chance to stay in one position and learn to play together, because that's what gives the defensive back confidence, is he knows where everybody else is. He knows where his strengths and weaknesses are, and until he knows that, he's out there all by himself.
I would assume that you probably will not play Adderley this Saturday night.
I would say that he would not play. I don't think he's going to have time. He's just coming in this afternoon. He's only have, really, we're almost through preparation this week. So I'm trying to get him ready, I think, to play against the Jets.
The 1970 SMU football squad returns 20 lettermen. They return Chuck Hickson, the nation's outstanding passer. They return Ken Fleming, a good offense, an unproved defense, but one that could prove very potent. But according to head football coach Hayden Fry, their main concern is getting past Oklahoma and Tennessee.
Jerry, I would say this particular season is extremely important because we have a very young, inexperienced team, and we played two of the top teams in the nation in University of Oklahoma and Tennessee our first two games. Should we not play good football against these two opponents, I'm afraid we're going to be very embarrassed, and this could lead to a very disastrous season. On the other hand, if we look at playing these two teams as a challenge and as an opportunity, and we play good football, win or lose, then I think we have an opportunity to have a good season.
Where are you hurting most this year?
Well, actually, overall, I would say that our defensive team is by far the most inexperienced team that we've had since I've been at SMU. We have other trouble spots, such as wide receivers. All of our people are sophomores, and with a passer like Chuck Hickson, we'd like to know that we had someone that could catch the ball.
Have you ever seen a quarterback like him?
As a passer, Jerry, I don't believe, and I'm sure that the NCAA records will verify this, that there's ever been a passer as accurate or as good as Chuck Hickson. Now, there's other quarterbacks can do everything better than Chuck as far as a running game and so forth. But from a leadership standpoint, calling his plays, using his audible system at the line of scrimmage, and throwing the football, I don't believe Chuck has a peer.
How is Gary Hammond coming along? Is he going to be tough enough to take that running back punishment?
Well, this is a tough question to answer. Until Gary really gets into combat in game situations, we won't really know the answer to that question. But based on his performance in spring and in fall workouts also, Gary looks to be extremely tough. He looks like, in time, with experience, that he could become a great Southwest Conference football player in the backfield.
So you can see the ifs are there in the SMU Mustang plans for 1970. The big one is if they can get past Oklahoma and Tennessee, they'll have the momentum going for a successful football season. Jerry Haynes, Channel 8 News, Ownby Stadium on the SMU campus.
Well, the government has painted itself into such a corner over the last 30 years of inflating the money supply that it's getting slowly but surely to the point where it's going to be left with just a few limited alternatives, all of which are economic disasters. And I can't predict a date for the devaluation of the dollar. I think anybody would be foolish to try. But I consider it 90% probable to happen sometime between this Saturday and the end of next year.
Well, devaluation of the dollar would, of course, come about through the raising of the price for gold. Now, the official price of $35 an ounce at the present time is being substantiated by the free market price of $35 to $36. What's going to happen to put these two markets out of alignment and thus cause the devaluation?
Well, first of all, a great deal of confusion exists on the subject by misunderstanding what a devaluation is. It is not a raising of the price of gold. It is not an adjustment in currency ratios. What it is purely and simply is the government reneging on its own IOUs. The government saying we issued this paper currency on the promise that 35 of these dollars were worth 1 ounce of gold in our treasury. And now that we find that we have overissued the currency, we're going to have to default on our promise and give you only half or a third as much gold as we promised for the paper dollars.
Mr. Baldwin, what is your reaction to the judge's opinion?
I think the judge was legally correct.
In this particular instance, in the fact that he does not have jurisdiction further?
I believe he's technically correct. He does not have jurisdiction further. The request that we made in our temporary application for temporary restraining order was to get the information that we obtained today.
The regional jail concept, in my judgment, is the most progressive idea to be proposed for the detention of prisoners within the past 100 years. In this age, we must get away from confinement and into rehabilitation, and to work with the Texas Department of Corrections, the various counties in this area. It is imperative, in my judgment, to bring about a reduction in the number of repeaters in the field of crime.
I think the judge made the only decision that could properly be made under the federal rules. The matter is still on appeal before the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit. And so I felt like that the motion was just not at all germane to the issues.
If your motion for rehearing is denied, what will be your next move?
The only alternative we would have in the event the Fifth Circuit ruled against us on motion for rehearing would be to go to the Supreme Court of the United States. And as to how long it would take for us to do that, I just don't know.